On Sunday, February 21st, an incredible event took place at the White Plains Presbyterian Church on North Broadway in White Plains, New York. We were treated to a second U.S. visit from the people of Fukushima, Japan, in the form of a delegation from their universities and media. This was a follow-up to their 2012 visit after the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster of March 11, 2011. During that visit, Kazuhiko Anano, a researcher at Fukushima University Disaster Recovery Institute, was one of the guest speakers at a public forum for first responders here in New York. It was a forum which was co-organized by the environmental activist organizations Clearwater, Physicians for Social Responsibility New York, and Indian Point Safe Energy Coalition. He came here again and was joined by a dozen or so other professionals and students, all from Fukushima. The delegation was made up of disaster relief and reconstruction experts who presented their evaluations of the corporate and government's response at that time and since then. Their combined experience included working for the government, working for the Fukushima University Disaster Recovery Institute, the University of the Tokyo's Graduate School of Information Studies Comprehensive Disaster Information Research Center, and working as an announcer for Radio Fukushima, among other various job titles. Their work experience covers being researchers, professors, associate professors, radio announcers, psychologists, writers, presenters, and the field of social work. They also went beyond the normal boundaries of these titles and became community volunteers as well. They stated at the onset that their purpose was to share the current situation at Fukushima as it is and insisted that there be no misunderstanding. Fukushima is not safe. The delegation wishes to inform us that no one believes or trusts their government and TEPCO, the plant's operating company, because of their slow response in giving out information, and that the nuclear accident has not been settled and is still not under control. Using slides and an interpreter, they explained the history of the 9.0 earthquake, the 30-foot-high tsunami that it caused and that struck the power plant, and the nuclear problem that ensued from the flooding, the evacuation of over 185,000 people from the city and surrounding areas, the 15,893 confirmed deaths as of October 2015, and the ongoing problems that have followed. The presentation lasted about 3 hours, and some videos have been posted. A more thorough video is in the works, and we will let you know when it is available. But their basic message is that sickness and death are still happening in Japan, and that they would like to see the shutting down of all nuclear reactors, as Japan did soon after the accident. Their further hope is that Japan will not reactivate or build newer nuclear reactors, as some in their country are now trying to achieve. Look to your news media and local communities for rallies and further news on the upcoming 5th anniversary date, March 11, 2016. This article was sent to ETV by Marilyn, Elie of the Indian Point Safe Energy Coalition. The leaks at the nuclear reactors at Indian Point continue unabated. While the levels of tritium seem to be declining, a stream of contaminated water makes its way to the Hudson River. Because of the declining levels reported from the monitoring wells, the issue is beginning to fade from the front page of newspapers. Elected officials are beginning to issue statements thanking Entergy for its transparency and diligence, and assuring us that there is no danger to the public. This year's leaks have been treated in the news and in the minds of most people as though this is a one-time event. It is not. Few understand that the problem dates back to 1993, when the first elevated levels of tritium were noticed during a refueling. In 2005, nuclear safety expert David Lochbaum called the matter to the attention of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as a reoccurring problem and inquired when the company would be required to fix the problem. The answer? Since the leaks only occurred during refueling, it was not a matter of urgent concern, and Entergy would be asked to look at the causes of the leaks over the next 3 outages. The outages are for refueling, which takes place every 18 to 24 months. Over a decade later, the problem continues unabated, and the Hudson continues to be contaminated with radioactive isotopes. This is called normalization of deviance. While the problem is not supposed to happen, it is regular and predictable. Much like the failure of O-rings on the Challenger, it becomes a nuisance to be tolerated as busy professionals move on to more pressing chores. It was not until the Challenger disaster shook the world and engineers went back to find out what went wrong that it was discovered that the faulty O-rings played a major part. Could it be the same for Indian Point? There is actually no way to say with certainty. However, it is clear that something during refueling is not performing the way it should. This is never a good thing in a nuclear power plant. Indian Point shares this problem with reactors around the country. Many are leaking a basket of radioactive isotopes into the groundwater and air on a regular basis. Note that these are uncontrolled leaks, generally of unknown amounts, that have been going on for undetermined amounts of time. While Entergy may be concerned with the adverse publicity it receives about these leaks, it downplays the problem, as does the NRC. Here's why. Legally, the company is allowed to discharge up to 1,300 curies. Curie is a trillion picocuries, which is how the leaks are measured. 1,300 curies is a significant amount of radiation. That's why the company releases it in measured amounts over the course of a year. Regular and routine releases of radiation are just part of the normal operation of a nuclear power plant. The justification for this practice is that dilution is the answer to pollution. Here is the problem with that theory. Radioisotopes do not dissolve like sugar or salt in water. They maintain their identity and are merely spaced further apart as the volume of air or water increases, meaning that your chances of inhaling or ingesting one are reduced. Should you be the unfortunate person who inhales a long-lasting isotope or ingests an isotope of cesium from the water, you now have internalized a molecule that will emit ionizing radiation and disrupt cell function by creating the free radicals in your body. It takes a lot of energy for your body to repair this damage, which continues to take place over a very long period of time. There is no way for you to even know when it got started. Some people have more resistance to this type of damage than others and feel no ill effects. Just like some people smoke and do not develop lung cancer. Some people might end up with various forms of cancer years down the road. This is what we subject ourselves to by continually raising the level of background radiation, which becomes ubiquitous in the environment. We can do better. Indian Point is old, dangerous, and unnecessary. It provides a scant 560 megawatts to our grid, and that amount has actually already been replaced in our deregulated market for electricity by new and cleaner plants. The latest report from the New York State Bureau of Coastal Management outlines the amazing surplus of energy or megawatts we now have in our system. The Indian Point contingency plan that Governor Cuomo initiated 3 years ago has worked. Indian Point could go offline tomorrow and the system would not even blink. Replacements are up and running and could kick in immediately. Neither would it raise our electricity rates. The wholesale cost of power is about half of what it was 3 years ago. The lights stay on, there are no rolling blackouts, and bills stay the same. Shut it down now. We would all be better off. For more information, call the Indian Point Safe Energy Coalition at 888-474-8848 or visit the website at www.ipsecinfo.org.
Then one day the sirens blew, the county was aghast. It seems the aging nuke plant had an accident at last. The stockholders who fainted couldn't be reached for reviving, and they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The highways turned to parking lots from Albany to Queens. The politicians learned just what evacuation means. They frantically assembled all their staff for some contriving, but they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. They knew the Hudson River was contaminated now. The radiation off the charts of what they could allow. They cursed the leaky nuke plants and its owners for their jiving, but they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The drivers of the buses went to pick up their own kids. School nurses giving KI were about to flip their lids. And somewhere in the distance there were terrorists high-fiving, but they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The parents were hysterical and tried to storm the schools. They didn't give a damn about evacuation rules. The plan went out the window, folks just cared about surviving, and they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. They thought of Fukushima and the folks who had to flee, the 50-mile radius set by the NRC.